If you would offer to me a moment to share with you a very interesting conversation that I had with a client of mine, it's my hope that what I shared with her is a help to you the way it was to her. She is 36 years old. She has been married for 6 years. Her husband is 52. They are, 16 years apart. And she says, Doc, I'm coming to you not because of challenges with our age or anything like that, but I'm having some other attraction challenges that I can't quite explain. And she says, I know what you're thinking. You're probably automatically thinking it has something to do with the age gap. I said, well, let's just start there. I said, what initially attracted you to him? She said, well, it was the security that I felt with him. I said, elaborate. She said, well, he showed up very mature, very responsible. She said it wasn't financial. He only makes like $120,000 a year. She said that's not a lot of money. She's correct, especially in the area that they live. She said so it had nothing to do with his material things, but he was very much secure in himself. He was confident. He was very logical. He was very thoughtful at the same time. And he was a problem solver. He did not allow things to just fester. If there was an issue or a challenge with anything, he would address it and deal with it. She said that made her feel really safe. The age gap didn't bother her, and she was okay with that. I said, okay, that sounds great. I said, so what happened? What changed? She said, well, he's now a horrible communicator. They could literally have an argument, and she indicated that he, after that argument, will shut down, become very passive aggressive. He won't talk to her for weeks at a time. I said, weeks as in with an S on the end? She said, yes, sir. He will go weeks when he gets upset and completely shut down. I said, like a woman? She said, yes, sir, like a woman. Now, I said to her, let me commend you for not getting offended by that. Because regardless of what people say, so many people speak ignorantly about masculine and feminine energy. All of us have masculine energy and all of us have feminine energy. It exists in all of us. But for most of us, there is a dominant energy. You're either dominantly masculine or you're dominantly feminine. And I said, it is greater even than gender. You can be a woman and have dominant masculine energy. You can be a man and have dominant feminine energy. I said, but I commend you for taking what I said because I made that statement assuming that your dominant energy is very feminine. She said, oh, without a doubt. And let me explain why I made that assumption. This woman was drop dead gorgeous. Drop dead. I told her I was going to say this in the video. It wasn't on anything funny or anything like that. But drop dead gorgeous. She's sitting there on the bed, legs crossed, hair, jet black hair, pulled back all the way down to easily her waist. Very attractive lady who's dating a guy who is 52 years old. So I said to her, your security in him was connected to the masculine presence, masculine energy that he presented when you met him. I said, is that fair? She said, yes, sir, it's spot on. I said, is he, into bodybuilding? How is he physically? I wanted to just make sure I was checking the boxes here. She said, oh, he's overweight. I said, say that again. She said, he's overweight. I said, his stomach is huge. He doesn't hardly take care of himself. He's got a great personality, larger than life personality. He was still very confident, all of those things that I mentioned he was when I met him, but he's not in shape like me. He doesn't work out at all. I said, thank you for proving my point, because feminine energy tends to not even care as much about those things as much as masculine energy does. If we want to make this a man and woman thing, just look around you. Men tend to be more visual in what appeals to them first. If they're healed, they're visual, but they're also the other things as well. But women tend to not pay as much attention to visual. Obviously, women want nice looking men, but they're also very interested in the other things that he brings. And I said, ma'am, you're the classic example of what I teach. I said, this is exactly what I teach. I said, but his passive aggressiveness and not talking to you for weeks very much is a feminine thing. When a woman gets mad at her husband or at her boyfriend, and she's locked into her feminine energy, she may emotionally shut down because emotions, the thing that is her strength, has now been wounded. I said, so it makes sense. But if a man counters that by acting that way, you've got two silent people in the house and you've got more chaos. And I said, what does that eventually make you feel about him? She put her head down. She starts wiping her eyes. You could see tears flying down her face. And I'm like, oh God, I messed up. And she raises up and she says, Doc, I'm ashamed to say this. She said, but honestly, I'm disgusted by him. Disgusted. And it was mind blowing to hear her admit that. I said, okay, you're disgusted. And she said, and I can't process it. I said, okay, let me help you process this. I said, have you ever had McDonald's before? She starts smiling, tears wiping her face, said, yes, sir. I said, what's your favorite food? She said, fries. I said, we used to eat McDonald's all the time when I was a kid. My dad would take, me, my brother and sister out on a Friday before we went to the football games. During the fall, I played basketball. My brother played football. So when he was older, he obviously stopped doing that because we were involved in sports. But when we were little kids, he would do that. And so I used to eat Big Macs all the time. And it was cool in the beginning, but because we had it so much over time, I grew to hate Big Macs. Like the idea of a Big Mac and especially that special sauce it's just wild to me. I don't like it. I said, does this make McDonald's a bad place? She said, no, sir, not really. I said, I agree. It doesn't make McDonald's a bad place, but it does mean that McDonald's is no longer appropriate for the way that I've grown. Is that correct? She said, I couldn't agree more. I said, not only is it not appropriate for the way that I've grown, but with my growth came a change in my taste buds and my appetite, correct? She said, yes, sir. I said, let me ask you this question. Does McDonald's work for some people? She said, yeah. She said, they're packed all the time. I said, exactly. Which means just because it doesn't work for me doesn't mean it won't work for somebody else. But I don't have to settle for it because it doesn't work for me. She's smiling, she's writing, she's nodding her head. At one point she said, hallelujah. It was the funniest thing in the world. She said, Doc, I ain't gonna say church, I'm gonna say hallelujah. She said it was funny. And I said, so understand that sometimes when we grow, we expect the things around us to grow with us. And it sounds like the him that you met was at a level. And while you evolved, he stopped evolving. She said, Doc, do you like fast food? I said, I'm glad you asked. I do. She said, what's your favorite? I said, Chick-fil-A. I said, the Lord's house. Chick-fil-A is the Lord's church. She started laughing. I said, Chick-fil-A. She said, why do you like Chick-fil-A so much? I said, because their salads are bomb. Number one, I love salads. I said, but they seem to evolve with the times. And I said, take what you think about their sandwiches or their food or philosophy or whatever, throw that out the window. I said, at the end of the day, they're an example of evolving with the times. And this is what happens. When people don't evolve or progress, what happens is they either, number one, remain as they always are, so you're frustrated with that, or two, they get frustrated with what you become. I said, there is a thin line, man, between love and disgust. And there are a lot of people that are in bad situations, man or woman, that have been turned off from their partners, not because they don't really love them or want it to work, but because people get settled in relationships and situations and don't recognize that you've got to evolve with that relationship. My grandmother said it this way, that whatever you are to get something is what you have to be to keep it. Recognize that there's a thin line between love and disgust, and make sure that when you're in relationships or connections with others, that you don't rely on who you were yesterday to satisfy what you need tomorrow. I hope that made sense. If it did, type church in the comments with 3 R's. And then remember, you've got 2 jobs. 1, be better today than what you were yesterday. And 2, don't forget what I told you. What's up, everybody? This is Dr. Zeb. Listen, I've been dying to make this announcement for a very long time now, and I'm pleased to say that Inspire Nation has officially launched. Yes, we finally got a Facebook and YouTube community group where we're going to have exclusive content, exclusive shorts, exclusive discussion prompts, where we're going to engage with other people literally around the world who are on the same healing journey that we're on. I need you to go find these pages right now on Facebook and YouTube. Inspire Nation, follow the page, join the group, introduce yourself, and be prepared to link up with literally thousands of people around the world who are on the same healing journey, who are looking for the same resources, and who want to also be surrounded with other like-minded individuals who are growing in the same direction as you are. I'm so excited about this because it's the beginning of some great things I can't talk about right now. Listen, you got two jobs. One, be better today than what you were yesterday. And two, don't forget what I told you.